So yesterday I already said that we're going to have the next 10 years. So we were having voices of previous hosts of this event today. Some of them are here and can give them in person. Some of them gave them in writing. And we are going to look at this for this event. And also some of you took part in the survey. Also those results will be shown in this context. This is a map, and it's a quick where we went, the different locations in order of their of where it took place. So we started in Munich with the first event. We are back. We've said that a few times. We've been to the States. We've been to Asia and Japan. And if you look at this, you sort of might guess on where I at least would like the event to be, in what area and what region the next year, because there's a slight off balance here. Okay, we have a few photos of the event. It's just a few, and we haven't been so yeah, there actually weren't that many photos available of the events. The one you've seen of the first one already yesterday. And then we had the event with the first, the X5, the first car with a broad reach, 100 base T1 technology that was exhibited when the event was at Bosch in Leinfelden. And yeah, a few photos of the panel discussions, organizing teams that we had, and a few of the other events. So this is the, I asked questions to the previous hosts. Those are the questions: where and when was your event? What was the most important challenge of automotive Ethernet at the time? What is the most important development between then, when the event happened, and today? In respect to automotive Ethernet, and also what, in your opinion, are the most important challenges to address in the next 10 years? So that was also the question that you were able to participate in the survey. And the points that were taken into the survey were actually the points that were given by the previous hosts. And except for one host, unfortunately, I didn't get feedback from Jaguar Land Rover. Everybody else has actually provided feedback, so if those are online, thank you for participating in that. And of course, also to those here to participate in this. So we had the different events. So I'd first like Daniel to come on stage. You've met him yesterday. He'll represent the Regensburg event and give those answers. Then we have Thomas for the event from Bosch in 2013. So the first 3 years are here. I'm, of course, here too. Then we have José for the event in Paris. And we have Haysam, who wasn't aware that he was supposed to do this about 2 minutes ago. So who is here for the event in Detroit, which was only 2019, and the last one before this one, that was a face-to-face event. And let's see how we do this. And of course, for 2020, we already had envisioned this to be the anniversary event to take place in Munich, and BMW had hosted it for that reason. It was a virtual event, and now we finally have the chance to have this event here. So the first question is, what was the most important challenge for automotive Ethernet in the year of the event? And I can start with that because in 2011 and even the years before, BMW was the only car manufacturer who had Ethernet in the car. We had it in the car since 2008, as most of you have heard many times before. And we were looking at the single pair broad reach to bring into the car for 2013. We've seen the car. And everybody came to BMW and said, what are you doing? What are the others doing? And everybody wanted to know from us. But of course, when I said, yeah, everybody's looking at it, or those companies are looking at it, everybody thought I was biased, yeah, because I wanted people to think that everybody was looking at it. So I thought we create this event so that everybody can talk to everybody and can build their own opinion. So that was why it was the first event, and the reason was simply to enable an exchange about the know-how available at the time on automotive Ethernet. That was the most important challenge, that people actually knew who was interested in it, who was working on it, who already had solutions, who would be a good partner with, and of course what other car manufacturers were thinking and doing as well. So that was the BMW reason.
Good. Yeah, as Kirsten said, it was quite important to have such an event kicked off back then, to get the industry to know the technology, to know the ecosystem, because at that time what we at Continental saw was it was still a very new technology. It was proprietary back then, luckily not anymore. There were even some competing competing solutions from various suppliers, which which made the decision on which horse to bet on a little more hard to see. It wasn't that clear back at that time. And I think things like Open Alliance being kicked off and such were very important back in the beginning. And as I said, no standards back then, and much of the technology was quite hidden. Looking at debugging, at diagnostics, there weren't specifications on how to do it in an agreed, standardized manner yet, and we had to fiddle around quite a bit to get things working at the beginning.
Okay, thank you. Thomas?
Yeah, 2013 we observed that many different competing 100 megabit solutions were appearing, and we didn't have a problem that we had too few solutions. We had too many solutions on 100 megabit, and we didn't see that this is streamlining to one solution. And then also we took action in order to get a real standard, and we kicked off the 100 base T1 standardization, which I think it was one of the key aspects, that we have a very good standardized Ethernet solution from 10 megabit now up to 100 gigabit. This is something that I think that was most challenging at that time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. We have GM. GM was already quite forward-looking at the time, so their answer is moving towards a mature and pervasive automotive network, from entertainment to autonomous driving, and how Ethernet is uniquely qualified to transform the vehicle. They said that for 2014. To me, I still think some of that challenge we still have today, actually. Then we had the colleagues from Japan, from Jasper, saying the key challenge at the time was a standardization of 1 gigabit optical communication. And as I recall, at the time at IEEE, that indeed was some challenge to get through and to have established as a standard in the group. So, Jose, you're next.
So, in 2016, there were still few OEMs who have introduced Ethernet technologies in their cars, and there were running cars with Ethernet. Standardization was on track. 100 base T1 and 1000 base T1 standardization efforts were running well thanks to the work in Open Alliance and IEEE. But Ethernet was still seen as a high-speed technology, only needed to fill the gap between low-speed technologies like CAN and higher-speed technologies like LVDS.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Jose, I actually remember another thing that was a challenge at the time that we keep forgetting. We had the event in Paris, and it wasn't that long after the terrorist attacks in Paris.
Yeah.
So we're thinking of COVID being, of course, a large challenge to actually host the event, but...
yeah, it's been a crazy decade, and we've been to handle a lot of things. Now we are thinking about COVID, but yes, There's been terrorist attacks in Paris at the very few months before the event, and there was also some companies that did not came to the event because of that, and it was a big challenge to organize the event in these conditions.
Okay, thank you. Then we had the event in San Jose, where also GM and US Car sponsored it, and their response is that the main challenge was achieving a robust and deterministic, fault-tolerant and high-speed network suitable for more challenging applications like autonomous driving and IoT connectivity. Safety and security concerns for vehicle connectivity and autonomous driving, and supportive for multi-gigabit speeds. So then we have Ford next.
Thank you.
Isam?
Sorry, I wasn't prepared, but so Ford hosted the Technology Day in 2019, and I joined Ford about 8 years ago with the creation of this advanced network group because of the Ford's interest in pursuing Ethernet. And one of the challenges that we foresee on this is making the move from engineered networks to a more dynamic network to send information back and forth in the vehicle. So we have been participating in Ethernet for the past 8 years and heavily pursuing that as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then we have BMW again for 2020 and 21. And yeah, for me, we said that GM in 2014, moving towards a mature and pervasive automotive network, an automotive Ethernet network, I still think it's a challenge today. And also in light of many competing technologies that we have for the in-vehicle network that are also being deployed. And so that was the responses for this question. Then we have the next one. So between then and today, and of course, I'll only answer that from 2011 today. For me, the most important development is that there is no discussion anymore that automotive Ethernet is part of the in-vehicle network. All major car manufacturers actually have it in the car on the road to some extent today. So that's for me the most important development, and it's a multi-vendor, multi-speed market with solutions available, and it's being adopted. So for me and BMW, that's the most important development between 2011 and today. So,
yeah, from our perspective, I mean, it was the year after the initial event. It's quite similar, the answer. So, opposing to what I said in the beginning with the challenge, today we have, as Kirsten just said, a multi-vendor market where we have the possibility to have not only single-source solutions, but mostly dual or multi-solutions available. Multi-speed, I mean, we have 10BASE-T1S up to 10 gig, and now in IEEE standardization 25, 50, and 100 gig. We have the network technology mostly standardized. I mean, of course, Open Alliance still busy with keeping up with all the new speed grades and doing the corresponding test specs and everything for that, but that's work ongoing and working well. And yeah, as Kirsten already said, I think no one in the industry doubts the impact of automotive Ethernet, that it's here to stay, it's here to be rolled out potentially even more. And yeah, that's where we see the most important development since then.
Yeah, I can just amend what Daniel said. I think we have now an almost complete ecosystem. We have a lot of tool vendors. We have software companies. We have so many tit pieces on to complete the ecosystem, which is great. We have on layer 2, we have all the big package of TSN protocols. We saw yesterday wonderful presentations on the different shapers and how we can use it. We are still amending 7022 with various transport for radar and LiDAR and other data that we use in the car. We have, from silicon-wise, I think we have a great multi-vendor system. Still, new silicon companies are joining. We have also very interesting startups approaching the market. I think this is a great development and shows the viability of Ethernet. automotive Ethernet in particular.
Okay, we have the answer from GM. So the most important development for them was the better introduction of Ethernet in production vehicles across multiple domain applications and multiple car manufacturers. And from Japan, similar for Japanese OEMs, they have now mass-produced cars with in-vehicle networking on the road from Toyota, Nissan, and Honda.
So in 2016, since 2016, there's been a lot of things that have been done. Now we have a clear roadmap on all speed grades. We have 10 megabits Ethernet ongoing, and also multi-gigabit Ethernet. There's also been a lot of work done on layer 2 protocols, like we've seen yesterday, on TSN side for quality of service. And also the creation of profiles of how to use these protocols. So this is, I think, the major achievements in the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm. From GM and US car, we have the response for 2017. Of course, they have these 3 years difference for the answer. New TSN protocols were finalized for addressing the need for the coexisting of deterministic and best effort traffic. So that was the most important development for them.
Again, from Ford's side, I will echo what everybody's saying about the adoption of automotive Ethernet into the vehicle and how quickly it happened. But also at the same time, starting off with 100 meg, and all of a sudden it becomes not good enough, not fast enough, and the demand for higher speeds and how fast we were pumping out all these specs. And we believe that's one of the most important developments, is how fast we can turn around higher speeds for the vehicle at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then one of the interesting questions that triggered the survey that you all responded to. So what, in your opinion, are the most important challenges to address in the next 10 years? So again, for BMW, that's making Ethernet really pervasive in the network, fewer non-Ethernet technologies, fewer or no gateways, and of course the use of Ethernet also for safety critical applications that we might shy away from at the moment, and having it secure and performant to do so.
Yeah, adding on to the safe operation of Ethernet, we think that the full ASIL-D compliance and the introduction for autonomous driving, for example, of automotive Ethernet to really rely on the safe and secure operation on that is a very tough thing to do and to get solved. And besides that, I think that in the vehicle, the multi-gig speeds will get quite tough to be realized, especially from an EMC perspective and a reliable operation. Speaking for a tier 1 supplier integrating this technology into the ECUs, we have seen already with 1000-based T1, having the standards is one thing, but putting lots of those ports in a very tight space, integrate those in an ECU can bring new challenges and be quite challenging and tough to do. And looking at the future speeds with multi-gig and even the higher speeds now on the way within IEEE standardization, I think that's, at least from our perspective, also quite a hard thing, a hard nut to crack, but that's something we will tackle.
I got a lot of questions from my management in the recent years. Why we need now 10 gigabit? Why you are doing multi-gig with up to 100 gigabit? Why you are active in standardization? For what? And yesterday we got a very good presentation by Max. So I take his words. Use multi-gig basically for video and get the rest for free. This is something that I probably will use in the future argumentation with my management. I still think we need to define the use cases for multi-gig applications. And also what we still see is that nobody is talking these days about MOST. Infotainment is, Ethernet is a well-set technology, but we still have legacy communication system like FlexRay, which will have a long development until we can replace FlexRay. I hope we can see this soon. Also, we had the presentation from Electrobit yesterday. I enjoyed pretty much. We also need to strengthen the understanding where we use very performant layer 2 protocols to get very high performance, where we use IP communication. I think this understanding has to be further developed and to be understood by the industry.
Okay, thank you. Then we have the response from Japan, and they see the most important challenges in establishing TSN, software-defined networks, and the 10 gigabit per second technology. Jose? Okay, so I think the major or the most important challenge for the decade is to use Ethernet, a backbone technology, using SOA, service-oriented architecture, as new communication paradigm with the right quality of service, safety, and security. So for that, we need to improve the tool chain of configuring switches and TSN protocols in switches with the right models, young models, AutoSAR, whatever. We need something that it is well established. And we also need to create profiles, TSN profiles, to make the transition happen between the signal, to convert the signal to make the profiles for gateway in the signal world in the Ethernet. Mm-hmm. So. Okay, thank you. We didn't get any responses from GM, unfortunately, to this question, as you might have noticed. Therefore, Ford is next.
So from the Ford side, I'll echo what Jim wrote first, but it was challenging to get automotive Ethernet adopted into the vehicle in the first couple of years. And what we're looking forward is we're looking at security and keeping ahead of the hackers. And then one thing that we see very challenging is how do we address serviceability at the dealers and with these complex networks? Because now we're looking at more engineered from the cabling side and many things. So how do we train our dealerships to handle serviceability of these new complex networks? And that's one thing that we have to address in the next 10 years coming up. Mm-hmm.
Then we had the question, we posted the questions to you. This is what you've received and had a chance to respond to. When I last looked, I did that last night, so if anybody answered it overnight, the answer might not be part of it, but the response is the following. So we have, no, I need to click it on. So having too many Ethernet PHY types was seen by 10% as a challenge, a large challenge. Having use cases, finding use cases for 10 gigabit and more was seen by 13% as a challenge. So that those are at the lower end. Handling different PHY speeds in the same network, that was 24%, so about a quarter of the participants who said that was a major challenge. Introducing service-based communication in the vehicle network was also 1/4. So I found that very interesting as a response. And we've also heard the presentations on the topic. It doesn't seem to be that obvious, but good if that's moving forward. Competing non-Ethernet technologies, that was about 30% of the participants who said they're seeing those as a problem. Using Ethernet and 10 gigabit from a technical perspective. So that was seen as a larger challenge than actually having it, having the use cases, that's fine, but actually having, putting that into the car and making it work, that was seen also by about 30%, and the same was for using Ethernet for safety critical traffic. That was also just, in this case, only 30%. That saw that as a problem. Then we had having the cars in software-defined networks, about 33%. Having a performant TSN profile, which is adopted by many car manufacturers alike. Yeah, so that was already 35%. And then last but not least, we have the security. 43% of the people who participated saw this as the largest challenge for the next years. And what I find noteworthy at this point, we had over 100 participants in this, and it's not even half of the people who see this as, even though it's the largest point and seen as the largest aspects in this list, it's still not even half of the participants who saw this as the largest challenge. Yeah, so I actually found it, I would have imagined the answers to be more spread, so it would be more clear, like something would be 80% or 70%, but not even below half. That I thought was very interesting. So for me, that shows that we have many questions, many issues that are really diverse still. Yeah, so on wherever many people are, we have many different aspects which are important. Yeah. So you have now the chance to ask questions to any of the speakers on stage. If you like, towards any questions you would like to ask on this. Well, the microphone is at the back. I'm seeing that you see your questions and answers. And do you see anything missing here from this list where you see, no, you missed something where this is the most important challenge?
Maybe one addition from my end to, for example, the largest point, the ensuring the security in the network. I didn't choose it. I choose other things, obviously. But what I think is, we say the largest challenge. Of course, I fully agree that having the network secure is a very important point to have. It's a must for very many applications. But on the other end, looking at what, for example, Lars presented about MACsec in the automotive, looking at the roadmaps from the suppliers, I thought of it as more of a, let's say, an approach to do, but the technology, the theory is there, the support will be there in the next generation devices, and it's just the way on, doing it right, but it's something which is possible. It's not something where I say we have the issue and we don't have any idea now how to solve it. At least that's what my interpretation was. So I think, of course, it's important. It will be if it's not yet, it will be a standard process, a must in every development for Ethernet-enabled ECUs and parts of a vehicle. But the technology, the solutions, I think, are there and have to be implemented in correct processes.
Okay, thank you. We have a comment or a question from Michael.
I'm missing one point in this topic, and that's interoperability checks for all the features along the Ethernet standard. Currently, we experience some topics with interoperability even on the file layer, and I think it's not covered by the current activities in detail. And I think that's a challenge because we have the big risk that the standard fell apart in different flavors, and we should prevent this. There are some indications that it's on the physical layer currently, and if I look to the all features, I think this is valid for all new features we implement today.
Very good point, at least from my perspective. Anybody would like to respond? Otherwise, Thomas, you would like to have a comment too?
I would like to make some comments, and not a very positive one, because I think we're here in the IEEE world, we're talking about standards. The problem is, how do you combine the standards on the right way, whatever right means. But I think it's really important that you should not fall to sleep and waiting for new standards. The problems are there today, you have to address it today. If you address the problems tomorrow, you will be too late. So that's my motivation, so I need you here all to go ahead with the right speed, because the German OEMs are fighting in a big, big new field there. And standards are good, but it's important to work with the standards to make the right combination out of it. We see a lot of presentations yesterday And there's still a lot of things to go ahead. And it's still important that we stay in contact in this group, exchanging ideas and using the standards that are there. Thank you. So
part of that, and for me that also goes into the interoperability topic. It's related, and it's a little bit, was put in the point, having a performant automotive TSN profile, and then the key point, which is adopted by many manufacturers alike, to have this. We have one more question, I think, from Vamshi.
Yes, hi. Software-defined networking, I think that was an interesting option, and that's a totally different use case and a business model for all the tier ones and car makers. Is that something even realistic, or is it a pipe dream currently? Because it's a major challenge. Where do you see this going?
Okay, I was just saying this might be a very good question actually for the break, unless anybody wants to answer it immediately.
Not really.
Okay, I asked the audience and the participants to take you up on that one in the break, because I also think it's a very interesting topic to discuss. And I'd like to thank the previous hosts for their participation and contribution, also those who participated virtually or just by email on this. So thank you very much.